Hi, in this video I decided just to make a real quick demonstration video of how to make a basic wing animation. I've been asked by one or two people how to do it, so I thought I'd just make a quick simple video. Okay, so first you need to get one of the bento avatars. I would probably stick with the female bento, because that's just the default skeleton position. Okay, so here we have our thing, and if you have your wings already rigged, that's even better, so that you can see exactly how the animation is going to affect your wings, but I'm just going to show you how to make the animation. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do is go Maya Star, and if you have, you can get through it through the panel 2.0 panel, or you can also just get it down here by clicking My Animate LT. And I would, well, you're going to be generating an animation skeleton first, and I would just click yes. And okay, .anim is easier to work with, and you can do things such as copy frames and paste frames much easier than BVH. So let's stick with .anim. Actually, it's not necessarily the difference between .anim and BVH. It's just that the old system, and you can click HIK if you want, although the HIK doesn't extend to the wings. But you can leave it there just in case you want to add more animations other than just the wings. Okay. So now the old system was Maya Star, and then the old system was just BVH only, and then you would come here to activate LinLab Avatars Animation Tools, and then you had to animate bento male or bento female, one of these here, and it created a rigging system that was similar to this, but it was not human IK. It was a different system. It's named very similar. I can't remember the exact name, but it was the old, very, very old version, and it couldn't copy and paste frames and stuff like that. The human IK that My Animate LT, you can copy and paste frames, and you can use with BVH or with .anim. I just prefer .anim myself. Okay. So the frames doesn't matter if it's .anim or BVH. It's the same. Actually, creating the animation is the same process. So I would change this down here from 10 down to 1, and we're going to make like a 20 frame animation. So these are the frames down here. And what you could do is you could select this as the let's go here. That's the left wing. I'm not selecting the let's see. You don't have to select the wing root. You don't want to, but you can, I guess, if you really want to. And then if you select hierarchy, so that you have all of the wings selected. Okay, and this is just going to be your starting point. So I clicked here, you know, on frame 1. That's going to be the starting point. And then you would switch this over to animation and come over here to key. And just the default settings here under set key are fine. And you can see mine, S, if I hit the S key by itself, it'll what's called keying a frame. So if I open up the options, you can just leave the options on their default. Well, actually, no, let's see, all manipulators, all keyable, and keyable. I would just leave it on the default. And that should work just fine. And so you could either leave this open and just hit apply, And you notice we got a red line here now. That indicates that these bones that I have selected, which are all of the wing bones, have an animation key on it. And then you can go to frame 20, click on frame 20, and you can apply it again. Okay, and now we have another frame on frame 20 of the same exact frame, because we're going to do a loop animation, and we're going to do 20 frames, and you always want the last frame and the first frame to be exactly the same. Okay, and so like on frame 10, I believe I'm going to have to do these wings separately, because I don't think I'll be able to, like, I just hit the, while I have all of them selected, I just hit the rotate tool, and see now they're all moving in the same direction. So we want to do this wing this way. So what we can do is you select the root. See, and it says, oops, I guess I don't have the root quite selected. Sometimes it's a little tricky selecting just the joint you want. There we go. Now that's the wing root. Since I click there, and the wing root, they both go in the same wing root. So I'd want to click on there. So I want to click on this one here, and then if I go select hierarchy, it selects all the bones, including the tip bone, all the way there. And now we could rotate the wing. So you want to rotate it forward. Oops, see that? You got to be careful, because sometimes these rotate in ways that you don't expect it to rotate. Okay, so this. Okay, so that's Y rotation. See, it went to 57. So you could go Y rotation. If you click here on the name, you can hold down your middle mouse button, and you can drag your middle mouse button. Now that's not the way I want it to go either. Okay, so we'll put, and let's try Z, or just click there and then hold down your middle mouse button. And that's not the way I want it to go either. Don't want to go up and down. Z. Put this back to 0. Y rotates it. Kind of spins it around that way. Like that. That's not what we want. Let's put that back to 0. We can try X. Hold down the middle mouse button. That's the one we want. See, we want it to go flap like this, okay? Okay, so then on frame 10, we can go to about there, and then we could change this to, say, 30. Okay, and then you can then hit apply to key, or I could hit S to key, leave it on frame 10, select that bone, select the hierarchy, and then on X we can, whoops, we want it to go this way, which is negative 30. So now they're both on 30, and you can hit apply again, and we've just applied for those bones. So now this is called scrubbing. If you hold down your left mouse button, like the button that you click to select these different frames, if you hold down the mouse button after you select on frame 1 and then drag your mouse to the right, like you're highlighting something, you can see the animation. It's called scrubbing. Okay. And then if we change this to frame 20 and we hit the play button, you can see the animation. So now we have a loop animation, and you can see what it would look like. Like I said, if you have your mesh already rigged, you can see what the mesh looks like when it's moving. Okay, so that's a basic wing flap there. Okay, and let's say you're happy with that animation, and you want to export it out, you would go Maya Star, and you go Animation Export, and this will open up. And you first browse to where you want to save it. So let's save it on the desktop, and you click Save, and that just sets the location. And then we'll call this Wing Flap. Okay. Now the priority, if you set it for a higher priority number, that will override any other animations that are a lower priority. So some animations you want to keep at a lower priority. So say you have an animation where somebody's just kind of standing there, kind of moving around a little bit, shifting their weight, you know, looking at their watch or whatever like that. You'd want to do that one at a fairly low priority, so that when you play a walk priority, which you would set to higher, the walk priority being set to a higher number would override the lower priority. So when they're walking. But there's other ways you can do that too, where a walk animation will override everything and just play the walk animation. But you can set different animations to play like that. So if you have a series of animations that are all playing at the same time, and you can have one set to a higher priority than another, so that when it gets, you know, and you might have the first 5 frames of that animation blank, where it's not really, well, I don't know if that would work or not. But anyway, these are called priority. The higher you set the priority, it will override animations that are set to lower priority. So I would leave this at 6. That's the highest priority. That's going to override anything. But it's up to you. Okay, now you want to have the start frame and the end frame. And obviously we want the start frame to be frame 20 and the end frame to be, the start frame to be 1 and the end frame to be 20. Ease in and out. That's a half a second. So that if there's another animation playing, when they play this animation, it'll ease in. It will do a transition between the two animations. So you can change that ease in and ease out. Totally up to you. And then, since this is a flapping animation, that's going to be the same animation played over and over again. That's called a loop animation. And you'd want to set the loop animation to be the number of frames that you have here. Now sometimes, if you want to do a pose, okay, if you want a static pose, and say you want a static pose with, and you like on frame 8, and you want to do something that has a static pose where the wings stay in one spot, we could say the animation is from frames 1 through 20, but you're going to loop in on frame 8 and loop out on frame 8. So it's the same frame, and it's going to loop it, meaning it's going to just keep playing the same frame over and over and over again. And that's how you make a static pose. But we want this to be the flapping animation. And, and I would make, okay, this is the other thing about you need to know about a static pose. You need more, these are the 1 to 20 is the whole animation. You gotta at least have a few frames, 1 or 2 frames before frame 8 in here. So you'd have to have like frame 6 to say frame 9. You know, the single animation, you have to have a frame before and a frame after that. You know, so if you were doing frame 8, you have to have at least frame 7 and frame 9. So you gotta have, because there has to be some sort of change between the 2 frames. If there's no change, like if we had this set 8 and 8, if we had these set at 8 and 8, there's no change in frame 8 and 8. You know, it's just the same frame. And Linden Lab, it prunes it in order to lower the cost of animations. If there's nothing moving, Linden Lab says, why should we have that be controlling that bone? You know, if a bone does not move or rotate, it just drops that information automatically to save space, because it's like, if a bone doesn't move, why should we be animating it? So if there's no change in it from the beginning to end, so that's why you would have to at least do like frame 7 and frame 9. The other thing is that the bone has to rotate more than 1 degree. It's either a half a degree or 1 degree. I think maybe it's a half a degree. So if the bone doesn't rotate enough between frame 6 or frame 7 and frame 8, it will also prune it. You see how much it moved there? That's probably enough right there. That's probably more than a half a degree there. So that's why I say, take frame 6 a few frames ahead of time, just to make sure that the bones actually rotate far enough to make a difference, to meet that minimum requirement. So I'd do 6, and I would do 6 to 10, just to be on the safe side. Okay, and then you can go loop in 8 and loop out 8. Yeah, so so these frames here gives the animation the information of where the bones are relative to each other and how much they have moved and all that. That's what's contained in start frame and end frame. And this is going to tell it to loop and just play frame 8 over and over and over again infinitely. Now we're just doing a rotation animation because all we did was rotate the bones. So we're not doing a joint translation animation. So we're not going to turn this on. Okay. This is a position range limit. This just does a test to make sure it's within Linden Labs restraints of how far you can move something. I think it's like 64 meters is the maximum you can move it. I think it may be less than that. And so you do a joint position test just to make sure it's not going to go too far. Now if you're going to do like a dance animation where you're having couples dance together, this is when you would do the global avatar. The center of the grid that she's standing on is 0, and then when you move if she's going to be dancing around, it will be relative to that center position, and that's where this global avatar position thing comes in. Okay, but we're not doing translation animations. We didn't move the bones, we just rotated them. Okay, now if you're using custom joint locations for rigging your bones, for rigging your mesh, I mean, you definitely would not want to do joint translation animations. You'd want to move these bones into position that you have them where they're rigged to, and then you would just want to rotate those bones from there, but don't include the joint translation animations on them. Just rotate the bones to do the animation. And because when you upload your rigged mesh that has custom bone locations, when you're uploading the mesh, there's include joint positions in one of the options, and so when you wear the mesh, it will automatically put the bones in those locations, and then this animation would simply rotate the bones, rotate the bones. So rotation animations are more universal. They're you can be used on a bunch of different avatars using different custom bone locations. Translation animations get a lot more tricky because especially if somebody is using a custom bone location, because the animation position will override the custom bone location that was set by the mesh that people wear. Okay. Okay, so we're doing we're doing a loop animation from 1 to 10, and so we want to have the frames covered that whole area from 1 to 10. Okay, now resampling. What this does, this cuts down the size of the file. Okay, so if you have a really big, because it's not a time limit. Animations are not limited by time. They're limited by the size of the animation file. The file itself is what limits the size of the file, limits it. So when this is set to resample frame every one frame, it's going to send information about the joint rotation on every frame. Okay, how much they've moved, what's their rotation set at. It's going to do all those. And we're just doing a very short animation of 10 frames. That's a very small animation. Well, if you had an animation, or I'm sorry, that only takes us to 10. I'm sorry, it's 1 to 20. Sorry, end frame, 1 to 20. There we go. That's what we want. We want the animation to play all the way so that when we hit frame 20, it's back at its position. Actually, if you want to get really technical, you want the animation to end on frame 19. If you really, really want to get technical. Because otherwise it's going to play frame 1 once, and it's going to play the same frame 20, which is the same exact position, and then it's going to play frame 1 again. So you're going to have 2 frames where it stays in that position. So it's going to pause ever so. It's probably going to be imperceptible. Like I'm doing it here. It's imperceptible. Now, you may like that because it gives it just a slight pause when the wings are in the up position. So if you want to see what it would look like on frame 19 and play it, now you can see there's not a slight pause. There's no pause because frame 19 isn't exactly the same as frame 1. Okay, and this red bar here is on frame 20. It's not on frame 19. So this is frame 20 over here, and that's the key frame that we got there. So if you didn't want it to pause and you wanted it to be perfectly smooth, like if you were doing a walk animation, you wouldn't want it to pause slightly. But on a flapping animation, a slight pause might actually look kind of nice, where it's a slight pause. Now you could even increase it to frame 21. Now frame 21 will be the same as frame 22 because we didn't make any changes to frame 21. We didn't put a key there. There's no key after frame 20. So if you do that, now there's a bigger pause. There's a slight hesitation. It's up to you however you like. There's a slight pause just for a half a second. Okay. But I like the regular pause of 20. So it's going to be playing as if it's playing frame 1 twice when it does the loop. So it's going to be the last frame here and this frame there are identical. Now, here's something else. Now you can click on these frames by clicking on the left mouse button. If you click on a keyframe, say frame 10, and you hold down your right mouse button, you can come up here while holding down your right mouse button, let go on the word copy, and say we came here to frame 14, click on frame 14, and you hold down your right mouse button, and you come up here to paste, holding down the right mouse button, and you click paste. We just copied the key of frame 10 to frame 14, and now if we scrub through it, when we get to frame 14, because we had these bones on this wing selected when we copied it, we copied the key, and you can see it pauses. See, her left wing is pausing because we keyed this to here, and so it made all these frames in between. There's no change. See, so there's a slight pause. Now if we play the video, you can see there's a slight pause on that wing. Okay. Now the old system, you used to not be able to do that. Also, you can come in here and you can hold down. I clicked on frame 14, and because that's where this red line is, it's frame 14. And I held down my right mouse button, and I can come up here and I can click delete. And now I just click, let go on the word delete. Release the left mouse button on delete, and now it's back to normal. Okay, Now you don't have to have any bones selected or anything when you go to export out of here. This will automatically know what bones to export out. Okay. Okay, so if you had a very long animation and you wanted to make the file size smaller, instead of exporting out information on each frame, 1 through 20, you could say export out information on every other frame. So that'd be 1, 3, 5, all the way through every other frame. And so that would cut your file size in half. And it probably wouldn't make any difference. It would probably look just fine. And that would mean the animation would be smaller and it would load faster. So if you need if you're doing a really long animation, you could do every other frame or every third frame. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to leave it at 1, just to be on the safe side, just for the demonstration. Okay, then you're going to need to make the window just a little bit bigger, drag it down till you see export anim. So we're going to say export anim. Previous value will be overwritten. Okay. It was just giving me a warning because I made that keyframe and I undid it. Oh, wait a minute. No, it says resampling set. Okay, let me go back here. And you saw it actually ran through it will run through the animation once for every joint. So that's why it ran the animation multiple times. Resampling value set to 1 according to the closest, safest. Favorite ratio resampling. Okay. Okay, so that's just giving us a warning. We should be able to ignore it. Okay. So it'll play the animation for every joint. And we had this wing joint. We had 1, this joint here, 2, 3, 4. So it did it 4 times for this wing, 4 times for the other wing, doing it at a total of 8 times. So, okay, so we have ours made. So I'm going to log on to Second Life. Okay, and while we're waiting for Firestorm to load and me to log in, this isn't the only way to rotate these bones. Like I said, I picked this one and I went hierarchy and I moved them all at once. I just find that for wing animations, moving them all at once and rotating them all at once, by doing that, you get a lot easier way to animate. You can, if you really want to, you can rotate each bone at a time, to get them into position. Like say you want to do something like this, where it moves in, but then the wing tips goes up. You can do that, so you're not limited to just selecting the bones with a hierarchy in order to animate. I just want to make that clear. Okay, I'm almost logged into Second Life. Okay, so here we are in Second Life, and to upload an animation, you go Build, Upload Animation, and let's see. Okay, now this is the wrong desktop, but I'm glad I went here because there's a BVH file here. Nice thing about BVH files is it will, especially with Firestorm, it will run the animation. You can set these things here with BVH, the priority and all that. Although I don't think it only goes up to 4. You can go up to 6 with the .anim, and it has the same ease in and ease out, all that kind of stuff that you had on the others, or percentage, in, percentage out. This frame in, frame out. That's the frame in, frame out. This is the percentage of the animation. So if we were doing, just like we said it before, it was the first thing. So we'd set 20 and 20, and if we wanted to do, or 6 and 10 and 8 and 8 if we were doing a static pose. Now, this animation I forgot. I was trying to see if I couldn't do something with the eyes. It's again, it's hilarious. Ding, 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 ding. So it's just playing the animation over and over again. But you can actually see what the animation is going to look like. Okay? I can't believe okay. I was trying to figure out a new way of doing sliders for the face, and it didn't work. But it had to do with animations. I was trying to see if I couldn't come up with Anyway, it's a long story. Anyway, so that's the nice thing about BVH animations is you can actually preview what the animation is going to look like on your avatar. That's the benefit of BVH. BVH, you can also change how fast the frames are played by editing the BVH file. But there are a lot of drawbacks, like I said. There's a lot of drawbacks. There's some good things about BVH, but there's some drawbacks. You can't go up to a higher priority, and on on .anim. So there's some benefits. This is the ease in and ease out. Ours was set to a half a second. So there are some benefits to BVH still. Okay, but we're going to be doing a animation upload of our .anim file. So let's go to desktop. And there's the wing flap animation. Double click on it. Now the bad part is you don't get a preview to the animation. You don't get any sort of preview. So that's the bad thing. So you just click, give it the name, which is, in this case, I'll just leave it wing flap. You could give a description if you want. I'm just going to upload it. And here's the wing animation, and I can just double click on it and go play in world. Now the thing is, I don't have any wings on, so you can't see it, but you can see the bones in Second Life if you know how to do it. I think you've got to show developer menu. I think it's like Control-Shift-D to see the advanced menu, I think, and then developer menu is down here to show developer menu. I'm not 100% sure. And then so you come in here to developer, avatar, and show bones. Come down here to show bones. Now there are the bones, and I don't know if you can see it, but you can see that the wings are flapping. So they are flapping. So we have our basic wing animation. And so I have an animation override that isn't animating the wings, and so those two animations are playing at the same time. That's what you can see here. That's the wing animation. And I believe there are scripts, I don't know how to do them, but yeah, I believe there are scripts where you can set in the script so that when you're flying, when you go into fly, like you hit F for the keyboard, if I can get my keyboard to work, go F for the keyboard, where it will play this animation. So I think there are scripts that will set your default animations that you want to play, so that you could have this set so that when you go into flying mode, the wing animation will automatically fly. It overrides whatever animation is set for when you're flying. And so you could do that. See, like this animation override that I'm wearing right now has an animation, or this sort of the static pose when she's hovering or when she's flying. And then this flap animation is set at a pretty high priority, so it's overriding the bones. Now, if the bones don't have an animation on it, like this animation that we created was only animating the wings, so it's not going to cause any conflict with any other bones that are animations that are playing on the other bones. It only animates the bones that there's motion on. So if you want a static pose of the whole entire body, you have to select all the bones and the skeleton completely and make the static poses that way. But that's for static poses or another video. We're doing this is for animations. Now, this little bone that you see sticking down, that's not an actual bone. That's something else. It's a, I don't know what it is, this sort of indicator of these bones, but there's not a bone sticking down, I don't believe. I'm pretty sure, if I remember, that's just some sort of, they made it look more like Blender, the way Blender bones look or something. Anyway, I'm not 100% sure. Oh, that's interesting. You can see just the bones. It's kind of X-ray through through my moon that I have as my workshop. But you can see the animation. So, but I don't know about those scripts, so you'll have to Google those scripts or go into the forums and ask how to set the default animations for walking, running, sitting, crouching. There is flying, hovering. When you're flying, I believe, is one, and you can override those. And so, yeah, so you'll have to find that out by Googling in the forum. I only know how to make the animations, and these are simply real basic animations. There's all sorts of things with animations. If you really get into it, you can change the curves. So an animation starts off slowly and starts moving faster over time, or as it gets to the end of the animation, you can have the animation curve slow down. So it's like it's stopping. You know, coming to a halt, slowing down and stopping, like when you're driving your car and you're coming to a stop sign. You just don't drive the stop sign and stop on a dime. You come up to the stop sign and then the car slows down gradually and comes to a gradual stop. And then when it starts, the car starts accelerating and is moving very slowly at first and then picks up speed. Those you can control with animation curves, but that's beyond the scope of just a simple flap animation. So. But yeah, if you can really get into animations, and those curves can make things have a much more natural movement to them. But that's beyond my capability, or I know of them. I've never really played around with them very much because I don't do a lot of animation. So, but I know of them. So, alrighty. So yeah, this is a 36-minute long video. I hope the few people who have asked me about wing animations now have a good idea of how to make a wing animation, and how to make a loop and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so awesome. So oh, and the one thing you might notice, depending on the speed of your computer, when you turn on these bones, it lags the computer big time. So we'll turn off that so that the animation is still playing there. The bones are just invisible. So awesome. Alrighty. Well, I hope this really helps some of you out there, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.